Okay, welcome to week 3 of our course on learning technologies and education. And this week we're looking specifically at the future and some of the tools we can use to try to study the future and make predictions of what futures may come about through the use of some research processes, in particular the Delphi process. And we're going to explore a tool that you'll use for your assignment, which is 1,000 Minds. And I'm here with Emma, and hopefully a few others will join us as they can as the evening progresses. I know a few people have courses just before this one. Okay, so one aspect of this week is looking at existing future studies. And one of the main ones for education is the Horizon Report. And this is a report that's been produced yearly for the last, I think about 20 years now. Maybe not that long, but certainly for a long time. And each year, a group of experts from all around the world are asked a series of questions and look at what the future of educational technology may be in a whole range of categories, which we'll have a look at in a second. And they develop a consensus on what they feel are the most important of those technologies, and in particular, when they feel that they're going to have the major impact upon education. And they do that on three timescales. Within the immediate sort of future, the next year, within 2 to 3 years, and out to 5 years. Beyond 5 years, making predictions in education or in any field is often problematic because technology changes so quickly. But fairly consistently, they've been making those predictions. And in the main, they tend to follow what then occurs in education. Some people argue that they may actually have an influence on what does occur. And that's a bit problematic for a research process, but it's the reality. But it's also a good indicator of what the current feeling is around the world. Because many of the experts that are involved in the Horizon Report are also involved in implementing changes in educational technology. So it's not surprising that as a consensus, their views sort of flow through to what actually then happens in schools and other educational organisations. Now, the Horizon Reports are done for a whole range of areas. The most famous ones are in higher education, and they've been going the longest. But there's also been regularly produced K-12 ones. There's even been an Australian K-12 one every once in a while, and I'm trying to actually organise one of those myself to have that occur again here in Australia. But quite regularly, there's an Australian higher education Horizon Report. And now there's also Horizon Reports from many, many countries, but also specific areas such as librarianship. They now do a fairly regular Horizon Report looking at changes in library sciences. So basically anything to do with educational technologies in the future are being explored through this process of developing a consensus of what experts in the field feel may be about to occur in education. And welcome, Sarah, is it? Hello. So let's have a look at one of these Horizon Reports. And in fact, I gave you links originally to the 2015 Horizon Report. Then I updated those to 2016. And I see the 2017 preview has just been put out. So we may actually have a look at the 2017 preview because it's the most recent. And it's not quite finished the research process, but it's pretty much there. So, oops. Just make sure I'm on the right one. There we are, 2017 K-12. So here we see that there were 3 long-term trends that were explored in terms of the key trends accelerating K-12 technology adoption. And as we'll look at when we delve into how this process occurred, there were choices made. And these choices were made from 30, 40, even sometimes up to 50 different options. And only 6 of them made the final cut. And they were then divided into, well, they were identified in 3 different timeframes. So the things looked at happening immediately are the rise of STEAM learning and coding as a literacy. So in Australia, the introduction of digital technologies and the proliferation of STEAM as an agenda, and STEM, or rising out of the STEM agenda of science, technology, education, the arts, and mathematics. Then above that, we have medium-term trends out to 5 years. And this is a growing focus on measuring learning and the redesign of learning spaces, which is happening in many schools, looking at new innovative ways of utilising learning spaces. And it's happening in a university area, particularly in libraries, where instead of just having lots of books, there's now many more computers and group work areas and open spaces for collaboration and engaging with information, not just in the form of shelves of books. And then in the long term, looking at deeper learning, which is an approach that's focused on intensive study into very narrow areas rather than a broad approach to learning, and advancing the culture of innovation, so becoming more entrepreneurial and exploring new innovations in technology. So what do you think about those?
I love the idea of STEAM personally, only just because as an arts teacher, it's something I'm quite passionate about. I've really found this article quite interesting. So
yes, STEAM is a challenge, but
it is.
I do caution art teachers relying too much on it, because
Yes.
becoming a subset of science is a bit of a challenge for a discipline. And I always argue that the arts should stand on an equal basis to any other subject area. But of course, STEM and STEAM are the flavour of the month, so it's not unsurprising that the arts do feel left out of that process. They're often left out of processes, but there is a danger in everyone wanting to become a part of the science and mathematics and technology agenda. So we also see that from other areas such as health and PE, or geography, or history, or language education, and a whole range of other areas that I strongly prefer the approach of having all disciplines valued for what they contribute to student learning, without having to recombine them in different categories. But it is important not to leave out the arts in any debate on education, but just as it is important for all learning areas. Now, Sarah, have you had a chance to have a look at one of the Horizon reports and got any ideas on the trend perspective?
Oh, sorry, but I don't have this kind of experiences.
That's okay.
Nature education, yeah.
What about in higher education? Have you seen any trends in the use of technology in universities?
Yeah, many like online learning. I think the thing that the class that what we are learning is online learning, and many students, they prefer in MOOC, MOOC. Is that a MOOC? I'm not sure. It's a online website learning website.
Yes, the MOOCs, which are the
MOOCs,
massive online open courses.
Yep.
I'll just open up the higher education one just for your benefit here. It's fairly similar to the K-12 one, but it does have a different emphasis on what's occurring in higher education. But let's have a look at their trends for this year. So here we see collaborative learning is their short-term trend, blended learning designs where you have online and face-to-face activities together. Again, we see similar redesigning of learning spaces and a growing focus on measuring learning. And again, we see very similar long-term trends around advancing cultures of innovation and deeper learning approaches. So while the very short-term trends may be a little bit different, the long-term trends are the same. And we do tend to see that in K-12 and higher education, in that often K-12 explores ideas drawn from higher education. Sometimes higher education does things first, but sometimes K-12 does things first. Certainly in the redesign of learning spaces, that was occurring in K-12 in some respects before universities. Certainly in the widespread use of redesigning of learning spaces, universities probably started a little bit earlier with the library spaces, but have fallen behind K-12 when it is transferring that out to the general classroom environments. Okay, so let's then have a look at some of the other aspects of these Horizon reports. The next category is around looking at the challenges involved. For any major change, as you're going to be exploring in particular in your second assignment, there's a whole range of challenges that have to be overcome or addressed when going to that new sort of learning environment. And here we broke it into three areas. Solvable challenge, which are ones that we understand how to solve, but we just haven't got around to doing them fully yet. Difficult challenges are ones that we understand, but we haven't quite worked out how to solve them yet. And wicked challenges are ones that we don't even really understand, much less have worked out how to solve. So the solvable challenges have been identified as creating authentic learning opportunities for students and integrating technology into teacher education, which is sort of part of what this course is about. The difficult challenges are around personalizing learning. So having each student have a unique, personalized learning pathway that they engage with their learning journey. And rethinking the role of teachers away from being the dispensers of information to other roles around being supportive of the learning process and being coaches and encouragers and facilitators of the learning. And then we have the wicked challenges of trying to scale these innovations up to all teachers. We often see these things working well with small pockets of teachers, one or two in a school, or sometimes a whole school, but very rarely an entire system of schooling or an entire country adopting widespread innovations. We do sometimes see it in a few countries, such as Finland, with their particular innovative approaches, and Singapore is also a very innovative country in relation to widespread innovation. And then the final one is teaching complex thinking, which is getting really into those deep higher order thinking skills and developing students' ability to think in a whole range of complex ways. So what are your thoughts on those ones?
I found that the wicked challenge is interesting. It's a really interesting word, I thought, to use for something that we can't quite define, that word wicked. I found that really interesting to try and wrap my head around. Just thought it was an interesting term for it, I suppose.
It is. And we have to be careful. It's not giving a value statement on it. It's not saying that they're bad.
No. It's just I found it a really interesting play on words. I think that's yeah, what I was finding from that one. But I did find I liked the strategies and I liked the resources that they offer for those solvable and those difficult challenges as well. I think there's a lot of research behind it, which I found quite valuable, which is helpful too, because it's good for us as teachers to look into.
Absolutely.
If that's particular to us.
And that's an important element of why these reports have been so popular, because they provide examples and activities that teachers and universities can use to try to address these challenges. And many schools and school leaders use these reports in their planning for what they are going to implement in their schools, as you will hopefully do when you come to do your implementation plans for your second assignment. And Sarah, did you have any thoughts about these sort of challenges facing institutions? Just remembering you're muted. You're still muted if you're speaking.
For that?
That's better.
Yeah. Just think is because before I started the online learning, I feel like it's so stressful to use the new technology that I am not familiar with, or like because we need to do the insight maker to draw picture that for the system thinking. But this is my first time to use it, so it takes like, I think it will take more than 1 hour to draw a picture, even a simple picture there, because I need to familiar with how to use it, how to make it looks organized like that. So I just compare with that. I just use my pencil to draw a picture.
And that's fine. Sometimes the best technology to use is technology that you're more familiar with, such as pen and paper or other technologies that can be implemented more quickly and effectively. That said, sometimes new technologies offer new opportunities to do things in different ways.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I think using new technology in education is very important. I should familiar with the new technologies. I should update myself. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, as we mentioned before, there's a whole continuum of change that people go through, and not everyone is on the cutting edge of innovation. Many people are more comfortable with looking at what's already been explored by others, and then developing out how to use those innovations in their own contexts.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's pop back to the report. So the third area is around technological developments. This is the one people often jump to because it's the new tools and technologies that are predicted to have a big impact. And they're easier to understand because they're not related to whole complex processes, and they're easier to explain and articulate. But they're probably the least important of the aspects of the report. But they certainly are the most popular aspects of the report. So here, the main developments happening in K-12 education are around makerspaces and the use of robotics. And in the next 2 to 3 years, we should see more uses of analytics technology, which are tools used to analyze data, such as student assignments and their marks or their behavior, or it might be their attendance processes. And by looking at a whole lot of data, make more considered decisions about the issues related to that data. Now, the next one's rather brave. It's looking at virtual reality as being a major factor in 2 to 3 years. Virtual reality has been tried in education a number of times before, and it's making another attempt. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not that one pans out as a prediction. And then in 4 to 5 years, we've got 2 fairly complex ones. One is the Internet of Things, which is where we have lots of devices that can communicate with each other. This is more commonly seen in homes where we have security systems that can talk to your mobile phone, or turn the air conditioner on, or detect when someone enters a room and turns the light on and maybe starts the coffee machine, based upon a whole lot of devices being able to communicate with each other. And somewhat related to that is around artificial intelligence, where we have smarter and smarter devices that can do things autonomously. They're still programmed, but they can start making a whole range of different choices based upon the intelligence built into their software. Probably the most common one at the moment, excuse me, is around smart cars, where we have driverless cars, which can drive down the road, making a whole range of decisions without us having to intervene, and within the near future, being able to take us wherever we want without us having to be involved in the driving process at all. So what do people think about some of those new technologies?
We started using robotics actually, which I find really cool. Like, I'm literally in the middle of nowhere, and we've started this new robotics unit for the kids, and they've never seen anything like it. And it's actually a lot of fun, and the coding behind it is really great. So I'm surprised of how great it was actually, and how much of a good experience the kids are having. So
yes,
yeah, I think it's, yeah.
No, absolutely. With particularly with the digital technologies rollout, the new curriculum, initially robotics wasn't considered as part of that curriculum, and there was quite a bit of debate as to whether or not robotics would go into designer technology or be part of digital technologies, and no specific hardware such as robotics was built into the curriculum. But very quickly we're finding that teachers are adopting robotics as a major element of their teaching of the curriculum, in part because a whole range of new tools are being developed almost weekly. We've got now dozens upon dozens of robotics kits that can be used in schools, and they've also been differentiated so that different year levels can engage with robotics in different ways. So there's some very easy robotics that very young children can get involved in, through to very complex robots, which can involve competitions around playing soccer, or where they actually construct their own robots out of mechanical kits. And welcome, is it Alex?
Hi, Jason. Sorry, I just finished my another class in Mount Gravity campus, and then drove back quickly. Sorry, I just tried to catch up with you guys, but no.
That's okay. No, but
Because,
so Emma was just mentioning about the use of robotics in schools, and in the main, we've seen quite a rise of robotics for education. Indeed, I've just got a new little robot yesterday, which is, this one's called...
oh, I like this one.
Yes.
I saw this robot in TV for several times.
So cute.
It is, and very, very popular with students. But it's very powerful in terms of being able to be programmed to interact with students in a whole range of ways. And this is where we're starting to see the move from the use of robotics for teaching to actually the use of robots as a teacher. And there are examples where robots are being used as teachers, particularly in Japan at the moment, but it's not that big a step towards robots and other artificial intelligence agents taking on many of the roles we've seen teachers do in previous years. So that's a whole big challenge for schools. But there's other aspects of robotics, or as I like to call automation, such as it may be automating the tuck shop. Instead of having tuck shop ladies and that whole interaction, it may be a series of vending machines that can serve out a whole range of different food products and so forth. So the whole aspect of automation is going to play an impact on schools, not just in the educational process. There may be an automated bookshop setup where a robotic device can serve out the books based upon students entering some information on a wall. And that may even progress into the library. So wherever there's ways of automating processes that can increase efficiencies and reduce costs, we may see those impacting in lots of different ways within a school environment. Just as we've seen the removal of typing pools, where we used to have a whole range of secretaries in any organization, including schools, and now we're down to just one or two personal assistants and receptionists as our interfaces, where in the past we might have had up to a dozen staff doing a whole range of different tasks. So automation and robotics isn't just about the educational process, but it can also be around a whole range of other things that you might want to consider in your own implementation plans for your second assignment. Okay, so let's jump back to the Horizon Report again and delve into it in a little bit more detail. So within each of the Horizon Reports, well, I just went through the headings. Then you've got the summaries, which explore them in a little bit more detail. And further down, this is only the, okay, I'm just going to jump back to a previous one because this is just the preview, so it doesn't go into a lot of detail. But let's go back to one of the more advanced, complex ones. So here we're looking at key trends, and this trend was looking at rethinking how schools work as a long-term trend over up to 5 years away, and looking at whether or not we have schools that work on a same sort of time frame as we do at the moment, where students arrive at 8:30 or 9 and leave at 3, whether or not we could have schools working 24 hours a day, or having schools also work on the weekends. And we have shifts of teachers and students that may utilise the school space. So there's a whole range of different things just around timings, but also around space. Do we actually have to have all the school co-located in one specific space, or could we distribute it around the community more? And some schools have already started doing that with sub-campuses and things of that nature. So there's lots of different aspects that we can consider about schools. Here in Brisbane, we did an experiment over on the northern suburbs over near the coast, where they put a school in a shopping centre. And the students basically went to different shops and did their lessons in those shops and were supported in a community schooling type environment, where each of the shops took on various roles and aspects of their educational experience. So there's lots of different ways we can reconceptualize how school might actually occur. Do any of you guys have any ideas on how we might have different ways of doing schools?
Jason, does that talk about the like similar to homeschooling as well? How they have the types of that homeschooling system? Is that similar?
Well, homeschooling's been around for a long time, but there's certainly innovations happening in that space, particularly with online education and the interaction between online education and homeschool, where we're seeing a lot more supporting activities and resources being developed for where we've got distance education occurring, and also making those available to parents that want to homeschool. So in the past, parents normally had to do it on their own without an awful lot of support. But more and more, they're being provided access to resources that can assist them in that homeschooling process.
Okay.
But yes, there certainly would be opportunities if we moved more to a community-based learning environment where homeschooling type concepts could be incorporated in, where students, particularly with online courses, may not have to go to school, go to an actual campus, but could do study from home. And it would make a lot of sense for them to be able to do so in that sort of environment.
Yeah, Jason, this is what I was thinking about, because the actual school now is maybe someday will be replaced by virtual school. So students maybe can wear VR glasses or VR equipment. They can all sit together because through the VR equipment, people can sit together. They actually have a class in a classroom, that is a virtual classroom. I think this may be kind of the result brought by the technology.
Now, absolutely. And I think either next week or the week after, I'll go through and we'll explore some of the uses of virtual spaces as learning environments. And I did a fair bit of research setting up a virtual world for Griffith University, and we used to have our classes. In fact, this course used to be held inside a virtual world where we were all avatars and sat around a virtual table and discussed these issues in this virtual space rather than through the online space as we are currently doing.
Do you think the virtual school will replace the actual school someday in the future?
Yes and no. I think it'll replace some aspects of it, but there is also a very strong socialization process of schools. Now, there is a danger that we will move towards not co-located socialization, and that's happening particularly in some of the Asian countries where they are communicating a lot more and not having strong social relationships in some instances. But I think there's also some difficulties with that approach, in that if students don't have opportunities to engage physically with each other, that takes us down some particular pathways in society that we may not wish to go to. There's a range of science fiction stories that have been written about the idea of everyone just living in their rooms and interacting virtually through robots or virtual spaces and never leaving their basically their beds. And it's technically possible. It would be possible to develop that future, but whether or not that's the future we want to have developed is what the question is. And a big part of our new digital technologies courses in education And this course is looking at those possible futures and making decisions as to which ones we actually want to have happen. And then trying to direct things towards that rather than just blindly going along with the technology that's available and ending up somewhere that we may not actually want to be. But I certainly think we'll be using virtual reality and telepresence and things of that nature to allow students to do things that they physically can't do at the moment, such as visit the Great Wall of China or the Great Barrier Reef, where we may not be able to physically go there, but we could use virtual technologies to actually engage with those spaces.
Yes, I agree. So the technology just makes the impossible possible.
Yes, or the too expensive possible. Most things are possible if we have enough money, but there's certainly things that we can't afford in reality.
Yes.
Sarah, do you have anything you'd like to say about the future of schools?
I have one more question. Do you think in the future the teacher, the actual teacher, maybe have not that enough knowledge compared with artificial intelligence?
Well, I think we've already reached the stage where specialist teachers no longer have enough knowledge to cover all of the curriculum. Even in the sciences and the maths and so forth now, and certainly at the university level, specialization has become the norm. There's no scientist that can cover all the sciences and be an expert in all of them. And we're seeing that more and more in K-12 education now as well, particularly in technology education, where students often have knowledges of certain elements of technology that teachers may not have. That's not to say, though, that the students will have a strong knowledge of the higher order thinking skills. And that's where we generally have a shift towards. So rather than just providing content knowledge or procedural knowledge on how to do things, developing complex understandings and thinking skills around design thinking and computational thinking and mathematical thinking and scientific thinking, that's where the focus will shift towards. And teachers will remain experts in how to support the learning and development of those thinking skills, rather than being content specialists. Of course, most students now can Google far more information about any topic than the teacher knows without access to technology themselves.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, so the teacher actually plays the role of leading students to learn how to learn and what they want to learn. So,
correct, rather than being the repository of that knowledge, which we really moved beyond now.
Yep.
So here we have another one. Oh, sorry, Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I agree with you guys, because I think in the future the school campus will not disappear, but it will just change to another style or another mode. I mean, campus will still there, but maybe some majors will only deliver online, but other majors like science or chemistry, biology, these courses will still need to be like in their lab.
To a large extent.
Yes.
Although there is also a move towards the virtualization of laboratory experiences. So where we can actually do experiments and engineering tasks and other tasks virtually.
Yeah.
But in the main, yes, you're correct. There are some things that we do in the world of work and in our social engagement that we still want to model in the educational process. Because if we're only modeling a virtual interaction, then that would then exacerbate the move towards virtualization in society. And we may not want to be doing that. For some people, maybe we will, but they're decisions we need to think about and consider, looking at all the different options as to whether or not we go down that pathway.
Yeah, I think education is shaped by technology, so it's hard to say what will happen in the future, but yeah.
It is hard, but that's where we try to get lots of experts together and try to make these sort of predictions so that we can then use them to inform our decisions rather than just adopting technologies because they're new and available.
Yeah. Okay.
Emma, did you want to have anything to say?
No, not particular. I was just happy listening, actually. On this
Okay.
one.
No problems. Okay, let's pop back and have a look at another one of these topics. Alex, you wanted to say something.
Yes, because you know, in China right now, many of educational organizations, some of actual, it's educational organizations just use the internet to teach students or to teach learners English. They can just use this kind of a conference to teach students English, speaking, reading, or else. So that I think is a very big development for the modern education.
It is, and particularly in countries such as China and in Indonesia and India, where the scale of the educational programs are so large, being able to develop really good online resources can then be delivered out to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of students. So while they've been developed in the West for quite small classes, although we have seen the rise of the MOOCs, which can involve very large numbers, but in the main, our use of online technologies and virtual technologies have been still for fairly small numbers of students, but the opportunity is there to scale these up to literally any number of students. And for countries that face very large challenges around huge numbers of students, that can be very useful in developing opportunities to provide high quality education to large numbers of students.
Yep, you're right.
So here's one on the rise of STEAM learning, looked at over the next couple of years, where we have the integration of the STEM subjects, which are science, technology, education, and mathematics, but also including the arts as part of that, primarily because technology by its nature needs a context. Technology is about solving problems and about developing solutions to various situations. And the arts is where creativity can be a great supporter of that process. Part of the big challenges of problem-solving processes or design thinking and the rest is being creatively, going through a whole range of creative processes to come up with lots of different options. There are techniques that we can use in design and technology and digital technologies to achieve that. But the arts, by its very nature, is about creativity and utilizes a whole range of techniques that we don't often use in technology education or mathematics or science, but can allow students to explore ideas and develop up options that they may not have considered if they hadn't utilized the opportunities that the arts provides in perceiving the world in different ways and so forth. What it generally is not is about combining the artistic process with the design and technology process. This often then is reduced down to coloring the robot or creating the robot into an artwork. There's nothing wrong in doing that as an artistic endeavor, where you utilize a robot as a object within an artistic creation. But I see very often that the arts is reduced down to a fairly trivial process and an add-on process to a technology process, where students come up with a technology solution and then make it more aesthetically pleasing as the artistic contribution to that. And the arts can offer a lot more than just that aspect. But I'm hoping that Emma might have something she wants to say on that.
I do agree with you. I really do, because I also teach English and history, and one thing I love about the arts, it can mix with technology so beautifully. And one thing which I've been talking to at my school is even using arts in things like cooking and home economics, and we do a lot of stop motion. That's what I've been incorporating in my school. For science, for example, they can use stop motion, which is a creative outlet for them to explain things like the blood vessels in the heart, or different scientific processes or how atoms and things can work with each other. And with mathematics, kids are able to do different things. So so many combinations. It can be pretty exciting at times. Talk forever about it.
No, absolutely. And that's what we want to make the educational experience really engaging and exciting for students by allowing them to engage with subjects and engage with, well, this leads on to one of the other long-term outcomes in the Horizon reports around deep learning, where if students really get passionately involved in learning something, which may be something really strange, might be, well, for young kids, it might be dinosaurs, but for older kids, it may be a really specific area of technology or a particular aspect of novel writing. Maybe they're into Gothic fiction or something. But by allowing them to explore that topic in a lot of depth and drawing in what other subjects can contribute to that exploration, students can go into some really deep learning about a topic. And we don't often see a lot of that happening in Australian schools. In English schools, particularly for their A-levels, where they only have 3 subjects, they tend to go into a lot more depth into those 3 subjects than we do in Australian schools, where we have 7 or 8 subjects, or 6 to 8 subjects they may be studying. But the idea is around that deep learning concept is to just allow the space and time for students to really delve into a topic and explore it beyond what would normally be expected for most students to just cover as part of a generalist curriculum. Now, at some universities, and particularly in the United States, they do that quite well. They've got a college system that's set up to support that process. And then the universities are seen as sort of the final deep learning avenue once the college process has been exploring a whole range of different ideas. And they often have that as a liberal arts education, where you explore a whole range of concepts and books and texts and so forth. And then you get into what you really want to focus on. And we did that a little bit in Australia with our graduate school programs. So any thoughts around deep learning? So a little bit like this course. Here you've got an opportunity to go into more depth around the use of technology in education than you would in an undergraduate course or a more generalized course in education. So, but we want to try to give these experiences to students where they've got opportunities to go into depth into a particular topic that they may be interested in.
So, Jason, does that mean similar to what we were doing with our systems thinking last week with those models? Could that perhaps be something that we could do to promote that deeper thinking with students, to get them to really pull those aspects apart and look at the cause and effects?
Well, certainly it could be part of identifying what they would like to explore, but systems thinking by its nature tends to be more inclusive of more and more options, while deep learning would be choosing one of those and then drilling down into that into more and more depth. So yeah, not quite that aspect, but it certainly would be useful in exploring what's possible and then allowing students to get into that into greater and greater depth. And yes, they may make complex system models of that and then identify an even more specific area to go into even more depth into. And then once they've gone into that, they may then make a system model of that and then go into even more depth into one aspect of that. So you could see that as a way of drilling down. Okay, so that's the Horizon reports in general, but there's also a process of creating these Horizon reports. They don't just pop into being. So let me share with you. Okay. So this is the project dashboard that was used for the Horizon reports, and the experts get access to this and work through a series of steps. So the first steps are just looking at the questions that are going to be asked and doing a whole lot of reading into different things that are happening. So for example, developments in technology. These are all the different possibilities that may be occurring in technology. So this one is around desktop research. Okay. Quantum and cloud computing, blockchain. So there's just literally dozens of ideas about what could be added to that. Let me just check you're all still there. Oh, good. When you go quiet, I worry. And this is refined down to, these were all the options related to educational technologies. So we see a few of these that did come out, like virtual reality was one of the ones selected. And where are some of the others? Maker spaces, robotics. But there were lots of others that were considered as part of that. And so let's say drones. So as part of that process, the experts explored what drones were and shared lots of discussions and resources about how drones were being used in various areas and how they might be included as part of K-12 education. So there was a lot behind this actual process of identifying the technologies. And if you want to explore more ideas, there's lots of other options for you to explore and read into, rather than just the 6 that were identified as part of the outputs of the Horizon report. So if you want to learn more about educational technologies, this can be a really good resource to get an idea of what all these different terms might mean and what they might mean for education.
Sorry, Jason, one more question. Is this website the one we will use in our assignment for selecting the topic, or because
No, it's not. No, we'll be using another one, which I'll show you in a few minutes, but it's much simpler. The Horizon report is done over a 6-month period, and they've got an expert staff that manage it of about half a dozen people, and they have about 50 or 60 experts from all around the world, and it goes over 2 or 3 months. That's well beyond what you could do for your assignment. So I'm showing you a large-scale project related to this, but you're going to be doing a much smaller scale project.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
But other things that were identified, people were shown this list and they explored it, but they also identified other technologies that they felt hadn't been included. So here, what were some of the ones that weren't? Universal design for learning, which is around accessibility to various technologies. Smart cities. What else we got? Smart learning environments, analytics technologies, microchips implants, where we put chips in our people's brains and so forth. Badging, machine learning. So there was a whole range of others that were considered, and these were contributed by the actual participants. Then they also identified, they identified the key trends. But again, while the Horizon report showed 6 of those trends, there were a lot more that were considered. So here's some of the ones that were also considered as part of that. Neuropsychology, open educational resources, redesign of, or rethinking how schools work was one of the ones that was included. But there were lots of others that weren't included, but are also things that you might want to read about when you come to your own process of looking at the challenges involved in your educational environment. So lots of different ideas that you could get there. And then they had the significant challenges. Remember, these were the wicked challenges and the other 2 types. And these are some of the ones: the achievement gap, digital equity, universal design for learning again, having a balance to your life, so not all being work, conflicting views of what computational thinking actually means, a crisis in teaching, improving digital literacy. So a whole lot of other issues that you could also have a look at and consider when you look at your own organization or your own classroom in terms of the challenges that your space has. And then the research process began in earnest, where they did some rounds of voting. So they looked at those various things, and we don't have access to show you that, but they went through and voted on the ones that they thought were best. Basically, each participant in the research was given 10 votes, and they allocated them out to various options in each of those 3 areas. Then they looked at the results of that voting, and then they went through a second round of voting. So the first round identified sort of the front runners, what people thought were the major issues, but then they went through a second round to refine that and have a bit more of a considered approach as to what the actual results should be. So that's an example of the Delphi process. And as you can see there, it went over between March and August. And if you want to know more about the methodology, in terms of the research method behind it, there's a whole lot of information there that you could read about in terms of the, well, not that much information, in terms of the research methodology itself. Okay. So that's an example of a research method used to develop a consensus on a range of options. And the options in this case were the technologies that were most likely to impact upon schooling in the next few years, the challenges facing schoolings, and the various trends that were facing education. Now, they may not be your questions that you decide to develop for your assignment, but you do need to come up with some questions and then have up to 10 people or more answer those questions. And then you'll come up with a list of which ones are the most important. And I'm going to show you a software tool that will assist you in that process and automate it to a large extent, which makes it a bit easier. Now, the tool is called 1,000 Minds. Now, I had hoped that more of you would have a look at that for this evening, as it was set as part of the readings. Emma did that well, which is, thank you, Emma, but she was the only one. So while we will be going through it, it will make a lot more sense if you've actually done it yourself. Of course, this is really your chance to have a practice before you do it for your assignment. And of course, make mistakes now so that you don't make them when you do it for your first assignment. Okay, but before we move on from the Horizon reports, any other questions about the Delphi process or consensus research?
No. No questions.
Okay. I'll take that as a consensus no. Okay, so when you go to 1,000 Minds, there's a link that I've provided you which allows you to set up an account for free for Griffith University students. So make sure you find that and go there to set that up. And once you start in, you'll see a screen a bit like this. Now, first thing you do is you create a model. This shows a couple of models that I've already created, and you're given a range of choices. Now, there are 3 levels of models, and they increase in complexity. This is the most complex one, which you can see has about 8 steps. So a whole range of steps along the top here. Somewhat less complex is the ranked alternatives, where you see it has 7 or 8 steps. And the simplest one is preference values, where it only has a few steps. I'm going to take you through ranked alternatives. In the descriptions and the step through in the notes, I've just asked you to have a look at preference values. But for this run through, we're going to have a look at ranked alternatives, which is a little more complex, but somewhat more useful. So we'll just give it a name. New technologies for schools. And we're going to ask some questions. So this is the stem of the question. So which of these technologies do you think schools should adopt?
Jason, so you send this link to our email box for us?
I believe so, yes. You'll also probably find it on the course webpage for this week.
Oh, from there, okay. Because I didn't find something about this in my students' email box.
Okay, I think I included it in a message out to everyone, but I've also included it on the webpage. So,
okay, I will check it.
Okay. Now, this is an important aspect because this is sort of, you only really get to ask one question, but the question can have various aspects. So next bit is we can click on the team. Now, team is only useful if you're having more than one person involved. Now, what I would like you to do, though, is to add myself. So make sure you add j.zagami@griffith.edu.au and give me access, just so that I can have a look at what you've done and give you some assistance if you need to ask questions. But other than that, you don't really need to worry about the team. This is not the experts that you're going to be including. This is just if you're working on this as a group. Okay. Now the next bit is the criteria. This is probably the most important bit at this stage. So when you ask a question, you're going to give people some options on how they answer that question. So what are some things about a new technology that we would ask about?
What benefits do you think the new technology can bring?
So benefits, and here we have lowest rank to highest rank. So how would we frame those benefits? So it may be the benefits to all students. So maybe it benefits a few students, benefits some students, oops, and benefits all students. So let's just think about this for a single class. So if it's only going to be useful for a few of our students, for a large number of our students, or all of our students. Now, what other criteria would we consider about an educational technology we're going to use in our classroom?
Can new technology replace teachers' role in the classroom?
Okay. So at the lowest level, it may save the teacher some time. Maybe save the teacher a lot of time. And replace the need for a teacher. Okay, so we'll just have two criteria. And now we go to look at the alternatives. Okay, so what would be some educational technologies that we could introduce? So let's say iPads for one. And we could give a description of what the iPads were and how they might be used in the classroom down in this optional narrative. But I'll leave that out for the moment. What's another educational technology?
Just laptops.
Yep, laptops. And I might include a learning management system. I think I should have ticked that. Okay. Not good. Okay, let's just do 3 alternatives. You would probably have a lot more than 3, probably up to, let's say, 10, which you'll need to have for your assignment. Now we get to the decisions. This is where this simulates what your experts will go through. And here they're shown pairs of options. So which of these technologies do you think schools should adopt? Okay. Why is it not showing the? Okay, I'm not sure if I've done this correctly for you. That should be. Let me just step it through. I'll come back to this one in a second. Then you've got your preference values, which is the results from it. Where's the questions? And it will eventually rank your alternatives, but okay. Once that's set up, you then go to distributed processes. I'm just going to run through and make sure it's working or not, and then I'll go back and fix it if it's not. But the distributed processes is where you set it up to go to your experts. So you add in some processes. Now, you'll always have your participants, which is the first process. And if I click on that, you can see that I can add participants in. So add myself in. Now, you'll also then should add another activity, which is the survey. So you've created the survey, which was done in the first stage. Now you're choosing which one to include. So here it's going to be the ranking survey, which is the one that I created. And it should give us a choice there. So yep, new technologies for schools. And you can then add in some details that will be sent out. So please finish by, right? So make sure you fill that bit in, because otherwise the email looks a bit strange if you leave that bit in. And you can then put other details in when they finish the survey. And here you'd put more details in explaining what you'd like them to do when it's sent to them. You can decide whether or not it's going to be anonymous or not, and those sort of things. They're not all particularly needed. This is the email that will go out, and I'll just send it out now so that you can then see what it looks like. And you can then watch the progress of how your participants complete the survey, and then look at the final results when that happens. So I'm just going to go and have a look at the email. If I can get to my... So there, so this is what will be sent to your participants. And you can see there that I only must have filled in a little bit, but there's another field that I forgot to fill in to make it look sensible. But when I click on it now, I'm taken into this sort of here, and I can see I'm being given my various alternatives. Now,
sorry, am I on the same screen? I'm still on the 1,000 Mayans. I don't know if I'm the only one just seeing that.
Oops, let me have a look.
I don't know if that's just me.
Oh, that's a bit strange. 1 second. Oh, My apologies, I shared the wrong thing. Okay. So you'll receive an email that looks a bit like that. Your participants will click on this link and it will take them to a screen like this. And here you can see they've got these options. These are the technologies that they can choose between. And they go through and look at each of these technologies and answer the questions. Where is it? Okay. My apologies, something's gone a little bit wrong. I've done something incorrect there. I'll create a set of instructions to help you through that in a moment. What's happening? Okay. Okay, I won't disrupt this evening trying to work out what went wrong. And now, well, let me change it. Basically, what should happen is for each of the alternatives, there'll be a set of decisions that can be gone through. And if we look at this one, so here, a range of decisions, and each of your criteria are included as part of these. So the important aspect is that both criteria will be considered, but each combination of criteria will be displayed as pairs. Why has that not gone through? Looks like for some reason my criteria weren't saved. Okay, I think I've worked out what went wrong. So the essential element of your task is to come up with some good criteria that allow your participants to make decisions between various technologies. But this is not where they're choosing the technologies. This is where they're choosing which of the criteria are most important for them. So they go through these decisions and it will identify what criteria the person feels is the most important. And they do that for each of the different technologies, and it will then give a much better understanding of the technologies that they then choose. Okay, I'll take you through this again next week if needed, or I'll create some more notes to assist you with that.
Sorry, Jason, I have 2 more questions for this.
Yes.
So do the participants write down something, just like notes, during the process?
No, they won't need to take notes. Because everything should be displayed on the screen for them. You may need to give them just a little bit of guidance, but while it looks very complex, all those steps for you when you create the survey, your participants only see 1 or 2 screens. And it's very intuitive as to their choices that they need to make. And it doesn't ask them every possible combination. If you have a whole range of questions and criteria, there could be upwards of 1,000 combinations. The software is quite good in reducing that down to a couple of dozen at most combinations. And it will ask them enough combination decision pairs to determine what their preference is.
Okay, I see. And also, I just have a look at this 1000 Minds website, and I found this actually a software. Do we need to use free version, or we need
No,
there will be some money to be charged?
You need to access it using the link that I gave you,
Okay.
which will give you access to the Griffith University account for it. Let me see where I put that for you. Yep, so there's the link, www.1000minds.com/go/Griffith. Now, what you can do is you can create your own models and send them to yourself. It's even easier if you've got more than one email address. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is you can all create as many email addresses as you like by doing this little technique. Okay, can you see? Oh, no, you can't because I'm not sharing my screen. Okay, can everyone open the chat box on their right-hand side? You'll find the link to it on the left-hand side. But let me share the screen so other people can see it when they look at the video. Okay, so one of the nice easy ways of creating a second email address, if you're using Google, is, okay, can you see it up in the top left there? Is putting a +1 after your username. That will then give you, it will still go to j.zagami@gmail.com, but if you sign up for things, it will see it as a separate email address. So in the software, here, as we saw, say for my team, I could add in a second one for myself, and I could create as many of those as I wanted to. I go +2. So the software will see it as a new email address. Oh, it's got to go to them and have them authorize it first. But the emails will still just go to your main email address. Everyone understand that?
Yeah, but I will try. I will try to see. Yeah.
The main point is that you can create more than one. You can log into 1000 Minds, and you can then add in participants, which are all of yourself. So you could have 10 participants. Your name +1 at griffith.edu.au, your name +2 at griffithuniversity.edu.au, etc. And so you can have as many participants as you want for your survey that will all go to yourself. So you can try out the surveys, and then you'll receive emails inviting you to complete your survey, and you can go in and then complete it and see what it looks like from the user's perspective and whether or not those questions are making sense.
Okay, so we just use this way to try this software, so
correct,
to be familiar with this, and this will be a kind of a try for the next process of the assignment.
Yes. So create your own. You can send it to myself as well, and I can have a look at it and give you advice on improving your survey. I'll create one that works. I'll just make sure it works and then send it out to all of you so that you can have a look at a working one as well. But the idea over the next couple of weeks is to get some practice at creating these. Then, of course, you need to create a real one that you send out to 10 participants and have them do it. But don't do that straight off the bat. Create 2 or 3 at least before you create a real one, just so that you become familiar with the tool and know what it's like and run through that whole process of getting a decision on a series of questions. Okay, so any questions about that? it is a much easier tool to use than we have in the past. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier for you to collect data by only having the participants have to answer a few questions. When they had to do a full Delphi process, they had to answer every possible combination, which could be up to 100 questions. But by only having to answer a dozen or so questions, it's much easier for your participants.
So we can choose any topic.
Well, no, for your assignment, you need to look at educational technology. So some aspect around educational technology and the use in education. But you can choose any aspect of educational technology you wish. So you could look at the Horizon reports and pick some aspect there that you're interested in. You will tend to use this as a lead into your second assignment. So the more it's applicable to your learning or the environment that you're going to be doing your implementation study on, which may be your own classroom, it might be a university, it might be an English language school, it might be a whole education system for a country. Think about the sorts of questions that you would like to know and develop a consensus on. So really, it's your opportunity to get advice on what sort of things could be done in a particular learning environment.
Jason, can I ask questions about rural and remote schools? That would be...
Absolutely.
That would count. Yep, cool.
Anything where you think that your participants could give you good advice around, and when you want to get a consensus on that. Now you need to develop up some options for them, and that's what those criteria aspects are all about. But anything you'd like to develop that consensus on is what we use this tool for.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so yes.
Can I talk about like the future, how technology change the education in future, like that?
Yes, you can. Remember, you're going to have to give your participants some choices to choose from. So you'll have to think about that aspect. But you could use the Horizon reports or do some research on your own and come up with some options for them. But also try to think about it in context. So what's your experience with education and teaching?
I didn't have teaching experience, so.
Okay, so what's your experience of education then? So you've been involved in education in various ways?
Yes, international education. I'm interested in international education, so do you think social media can help international students to have better learning outcome or? Okay.
So that may be an area that you want to explore and get a consensus on in terms of the level of use of social media for international education. And you would give them a range of options as to sort of the have no use of social media through to extensive use, and give them that range, and then they can make their decisions based on that. But remember, they won't be doing it just on that one criteria. They'll be doing it on several criteria. So it may be use of social media, but then it may also be the level of monitoring that's done. Should all communication be monitored by the teacher, or should no communication be monitored by the teacher? So that might be something that you would pair with the level of use. And then you might have another aspect where should the educational organization provide the social media tools? So everyone uses the tool provided by Griffith University, for example, or they could use their own tools that they get from the commercial area. So that could be like 3 criteria that you could have around that particular question.
Okay. But I haven't decided which topic to choose, because I'm also interested in learning research. So I'm going to ask participants like, what do you think of online learning in the future? Or because online learning in the books 12 years already, but not many as far as I know, I think the university called the University of People is an online university. So they offer all the courses free, but the thing is, not many students are familiar with university and.
Okay, so that's research into an area called trends. In the Horizon reports, that's that first section of the Horizon report where they're looking at various trends. So have a look in there around trends around online learning and blended learning and the various other.
Yeah.
Yep. And then develop a series of questions about that if that's the area you're interested in exploring.
Is it possible to do this one?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'll have a look at it. Yeah.
Yes. So try and develop up a series of questions and use the tool, and you'll probably make some mistakes in the first one, like I did this evening, and then we'll fix those up next week and have a look at that and prepare it for when you need to do your assignment.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Alex, do you have any questions about the tool and things that you might do?
Okay, so Jason, I just want to confirm the link. So it's a link in the course website, content website, isn't it?
Yes, let me show it to you again. So there's the link.
Okay.
So it's on the page for this week. So
Yep.
predicting the future down towards the bottom.
Okay. Okay. Because I can't log in this content website, I forgot my password. I will find out later.
Okay. There is a process of recovering your password if you've forgotten it.
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have any other questions from this evening?
No question right now. I will have a question maybe after have the first try.
Yes, no, that's what I expect, and that was sort of why I'd hoped people would have given it a chance to explore the tool prior to this evening, as Emma did. Well done, Emma. Emma, do you have any questions? I'm conscious that I've probably made similar mistakes to the one that you did for yours, so I've got to go through and actually work out what we both may have done incorrectly there.
I think for me, the only thing which was throwing me off was the criteria. I think I need to try and figure out how to make it a little bit more specific and my answers a bit more specific. I think that's what I was struggling with a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And particularly how the criteria relate to each other.
Yes.
Because yeah, it's fairly...
They were too broad, yeah, and I know what you meant now when you were saying earlier they were too far apart. I need to try and keep them a lot closer. So now that I've seen it, it's a bit easier for me to see it and
yes,
yeah, what I have to fix.
There is a process you can go through where certain combinations just don't work, and you can exclude them where they just don't make sense together. But in the main, your criteria should relate sufficiently to each other that people can make sensible choices between them. And they don't need to be perfect because they're just choosing the one they prefer the most between choices. But the more it makes sense, the more engaging the survey will be for your participants, so that they'll then complete it and give it the attention it deserves.
Yeah, but I am glad I had a crack at it. Like, it's good to have a practice run because I feel a little bit better about having another go now to start my next assignment. So.
Any new tool takes a little while to learn and get some practice with, and I expect everyone to try 3 or 4 goes before they really get it to a point where they are comfortable with. Okay, well, sort of running out of things to look at again this evening. So if people are happy with what they've looked at in terms of the tool, make sure you give it a go and include me in so that I can then help you with the process when we discuss it next week. Now, next week we're going to be starting into the first of our sets of technologies themselves, and we're going to be looking at ICT and ICT integration. And there'll be 2 ebooks for you to look at. Now they're available as PDFs or as iBooks, so you can if you've got an iPad or similar device, you can have a look at them on that. But just look at the two on ICT and ICT integration. Let me share the screen with you.
So Jason, just quickly on the assignment while you're doing that, ideally, when do you want us to be starting that Delphi, like to have those questions ready to go, ideally? I know that we're going to keep going, but when do you think is the best time for us to have that ready to go to send to our 10 people?
Well, as soon as possible, really. Let's just check when the assignment's due. So due on the 21st of August.
Yes, that's still not.
So you've still got a bit of time, like about a month. So probably within 2 weeks, you should probably try to get it out. So then you've got 2 weeks to actually have the survey done and to write up your report on it. It's not a particularly complex assignment. It's fairly structured in terms of what you do for the task. I've given you sort of some steps to go through and breaking it down to 100-word blocks. But you do have to do a few little things, such as create a little system model for your organization, describe the challenges your organization would face, the questions that are going to be considered through your survey. Now, in the task, I've described having to do 2 rounds. This is when we did the previous tool, which was a more formal Delphi approach. For your assignment, you don't need to do 2 rounds. This tool will achieve the results with a single round. So where it does say you have to do 2 rounds of the research, you don't need to for this one. You could if you wanted to, but the tool won't assist you with that. You'd have to do 2 surveys and show the participants the results of the first survey and then get them to do it again. There may be some value to that, but not a huge amount. So I'm not making that a mandatory part.
Jason, one question.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Do we need to let you have a look at our survey first before let participant do the survey?
I would certainly suggest you show me at least your trials, so that I know that you're not just going to do a really bad one and make a lot of mistakes. But I don't necessarily need to see a draft of the one you're doing for your assignment. Of course, I won't be able to give an awful lot of feedback on that, but I can give you feedback on your trials. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
But as you see here on this page, I've broken things down into some fairly simple steps of words. So your experts are going to give you their perspective, and then you're going to write 2 future scenarios. So the future of your organization in one scenario. So it may be if everything goes well and everything happens as you predicted, but there could be other alternatives where things don't go well or go well in different ways. Okay, but we'll cover this in more detail as we get closer to the assignment. At the moment, you're still just learning the tool. But make sure you have a look at the Horizon reports and look at the Horizon report wikis in terms of how they went about the process. Of course, there's lots of good ideas that you can get there. Now, of course, they went through things in far more detail than you are. You're just asking really one major question, or with a couple of sub-elements, where the Horizon report process went through many, many questions. But you should still learn a fair bit from the process. Okay, so any final questions?
Oh, I just had a quick one, Jason. Are we able to, with the system models that we sent through, are are we able to, is there any feedback we can get from those on whether or not we're on the right track, or if there was anything that we were missing or anything like that from last week?
Yes, I'll have a look at those. And is there any particular aspects you were after in terms of feedback on it? Because system models can, it really depends upon the context of.
I think I just wanted to make sure it made sense.
Hopefully it makes some sense to you, because really it's a tool that you're using for your process.
Yeah.
And the idea is whether or not it's allowed you to consider new alternatives that you might not have considered previously. That's the purpose of the system model. And that's certainly how I'll be looking at it in terms of your assessment, whether or not it's a model that's helped you in coming up with new ideas. In terms of whether or not you've applied the use of that tool that we looked at, that's not really the point of the assignment. You won't be judged on that aspect. And
just how it connects.
Likewise, I won't even be particularly concerned whether or not you've used the flow diagrams correctly. As long as if you've created your own diagram that's obviously helped you in considering new alternatives and possibilities, then that's will achieve high marks for that criteria.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Thank you. Cool.
Likewise,
that's good.
Likewise, with the 1000 Minds tool, you're not going to be judged on how well you've used the tool or the website. What you'll be judged on is how well you've been able to achieve a good consensus through the process. So if you come up with alternative ways, or if things don't work out particularly well, but you still manage to develop up some good ideas and a good consensus from the process, then that's what we're really interested in. Don't think this is a course on learning how to use software tools. It's not. The tools are there just to help us with our understanding and help us develop up a good research process, but it's what you do with those is what really counts, not how well you've learned how to use a particular tool and the processes involved in that tool. And that's reflected in the criteria. Okay, any final questions, guys?
So far, so good.
And for those watching online, we'd love to see you participate in these online sessions. Of course, that will allow us to ask and answer more questions and allow you opportunities to interact and engage with the topics more. But I do understand many of you are just watching and working through the course material on your own, and you prefer to do it that way. That's fine, if that's how you prefer. But I do encourage you to at least give it a go and see what this online video conferencing format can, how it might support your learning. If for no other reason than to learn more about the use of video conferencing as an educational technology. Okay, everyone, I look forward to seeing you again here next week, and look forward to seeing some of your models as you complete them and send me through links to have a look at them during the week.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Okay. Good night all.
Thanks, Sam.